Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 10 defenses to stream for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 defenses to stream of the week based upon their matchups for week number 10. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 10 defenses to stream. Of note, there are a couple of teams on bye this week. We got the Chicago Bears, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Houston Texans, as well as the New York Football Giants. So my number one defense to stream on the week is the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Miami Dolphins. In Miami, the Baltimore Ravens defense is being rostered in 62.2% of leagues. The Ravens defense last week up against the Minnesota Vikings in week number 9 was an absolute disaster. They didn't force any turnovers. They got no interceptions. They got no sacks. They got no fumbles. All they did in that game was allow 31 points, but somehow, in typical Minnesota Vikings fashion, the Vikings choked that game, and the Baltimore Ravens end up winning that game. Now, I understand, oh, Nick, now doesn't that mean that the Ravens defense is bad? And while the Ravens defense isn't some elite force in the NFL, they're going up against the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins, while they beat the Houston Texans last week, they made the Houston Texans defense look like the fucking 85 Bears. The Texans defense, week 9 up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami, they had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 sacks in that game, 2 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, and 17 points allowed. The Miami Dolphins offense is a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. The Dolphins offense is a dumpster fire. They're most likely going to be without Tua Tagovailoa in this game because the game is being played on Thursday Night Football. Will Fuller's not back. Devontae Parker is not back. This offense is screwed. Now, I think Jalen Waddle could be fine for fantasy football. Same thing with Mike Gesicki, because they're going to see enough target volume. But at the end of the day, I expect the Baltimore Ravens defense to absolutely maul the Miami Dolphins offense. I think the Dolphins stand no chance in this game. I expect the Baltimore Ravens to be one of the top defenses at the end of the week, thus making them my number one defense to stream on the week. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, the Packers defense is being rostered in 52.5% of leagues. I forgot to mention that this is on NFL.com, so if you play on Yahoo, ESPN, any of those other websites, the roster percentage is going to be slightly different. So it appears that Russell Wilson is going to be good to go on Sunday in this matchup up against the Packers, and that's all fine and dandy. But you have to understand that there's a good chance that Russell Wilson isn't at 100%, because it seemed like Russell Wilson was going to be missing some serious time, not coming back in week number 10. So in my opinion, I think Pete Carroll called him up while gum chewing on the phone, munching on that gum, and told him, hey, Russ, we need some fucking help, because with Geno Smith as the starting quarterback, this offense has been a disaster. Come back. And that's all cool, right? Russell Wilson will be back, but the Green Bay Packers offense has looked very good. And again, I do not believe that Russell Wilson will be 100% in this game. The Green Bay Packers last week up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City in Arrowhead, they had 1 sack and 13 points allowed. If the Packers offense wasn't complete and utter limp dick with Jordan Love under center, then they probably would have beaten the Chiefs. The Chiefs offense looked terrible. It looked so bad in that game, but they were still able to win. The Packers defense played quite strong. The Seattle Seahawks had a bye last week in week number 9, so we're going to go ahead and look at week number 8 to see their opponent's defensive stats. So the Jaguars in week number 8 up against the Seattle Seahawks, they had 3 sacks and 31 points allowed. Now, I'm going to say that the Jaguars defense isn't very good, but Nick, didn't the Jaguars just shut down Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? Yes, I understand that, but I still don't think the Jaguars are all that great of a defense. Sure, Geno Smith looked good in that game, but I do believe that Russell Wilson coming back isn't necessarily the greatest thing for the Seahawks, because I believe he's still banged up, and I think the Green Bay Packers defense looks quite good in this matchup. Next up, we move to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is being rostered in 32.8% of leagues. Again, the Kansas City Chiefs don't have the greatest defense, but as of recently, that defense has looked at least somewhat better. Last week up against the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love, they had 1 sack, 1 INT, INT, 1 fumble recovery, as well as 7 points allowed in that matchup. The Giants last week went up against the Raiders. They had 1 sack, 2 INTs, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, and 16 points allowed. The Las Vegas Raiders offense is definitely not as good as it was at the beginning of the season without Henry Ruggs. This offense just doesn't look all that good. And while the Kansas City Chiefs defense, again, they're far from an elite defense. They're far from a formidable opponent, but I do think there's potential for this game to be low scoring. And if that is the case, I really do like the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And speaking of a low scoring game, we got the defense on the other side of the ball. The Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs defense was rostered in 32.8% of leagues. The Raiders defense is being rostered in 18.1% of leagues. This week, streaming defenses is about as hard as it's gotten. There are a lot of matchups that I don't like, so the defenses were much more slim pickings this week, in my opinion, even though there was only 4 teams on bye. But before we break down the Las Vegas Raiders defense, I would like to ask that if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like on today's video as well. It would help us out a ton. So Las Vegas Raiders defense, while they lost to the New York Football Giants on Sunday in MetLife, the defense still had 3 sacks. They had 1 fumble recovery and 17 points allowed. The Kansas City Chiefs have only eclipsed 21 points once in the last 4 games. That doesn't sound very good, does it? The Kansas City Chiefs offense, for some reason, they're just on a dry spell. They're just not playing well at all, and I don't really expect that to change in this game up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Do I think that the Kansas City Chiefs franchise is fucking doomed? That they're a dumpster fire like my Miami Dolphins? Of course not. I think next year wouldn't surprise me if the Kansas City Chiefs were being talked up as an AFC contender, because I really do believe they're one of the better teams in the NFL next year. But this year, they might end up missing the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders played very strong in this matchup. The Packers defense going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I understand we talked about the Packers a little bit earlier, but again, to reiterate, in that game up against the Chiefs in Kansas City, the Packers defense had 1 sack and 13 points allowed. The Packers defense didn't even look great in that game, and the Chiefs defense was still flopping like a fucking fish out there. So the Raiders versus the Chiefs on paper, you would think earlier on in the season, you're like, you know what? If the Raiders and Derek Carr, if they're able to keep up with the Chiefs, this could be a really high-scoring game. But based upon what we've seen this season, this may be a very low-scoring affair between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Final defense to discuss in today's video. Shockingly, the Tennessee Titans defense has done a complete and utter 180 this season. Early on in the season, the Titans defense sucked complete and utter donkey cock. And right now, the Tennessee Titans defense is coming off of a game where they shut down, in my opinion, one of the best offenses in the NFL, if not what I thought to be the best offense in the NFL in the LA Rams. So this week, the Tennessee Titans are going up against the New Orleans Saints. The Tennessee Titans defense is being rostered in 11.8% of leagues on NFL.com. The Titans last week up against the Rams in LA, 5 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 touchdown, and 16 points allowed. They made Matthew Stafford do a double take because the motherfucker probably felt like he was back in Detroit with how hard he was being pounded by the defense. It was a throwback to his days in Detroit. The Tennessee Titans were all over the Rams. The Rams were not very effective at running the ball. They were not very effective at throwing the ball, and the Rams could not stop. They could not stop the defense. Matthew Stafford was getting laid out, play in and play out. So if I'm being honest with you, while the New Orleans Saints offense is definitely up in the air, right? They had a pretty strong showing up against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons defense had 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and 25 points allowed in that game. The quarterback situation there in New Orleans is certainly up in the air. Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Is it going to be Trevor Siemian? My opinion would be if Taysom Hill is healthy, I would think he would be the guy because Trevor Siemian didn't look great last week. But again, even with the confusion at the quarterback position for the New Orleans Saints, I still believe that the Tennessee Titans will be able to get it done regardless of which quarterback they play against. So again, while going into the year, I didn't believe at all in the Tennessee Titans defense. They have proved me completely wrong. They have proved many people very wrong, and I expect them to look solid at tip-top shape up against the New Orleans Saints this week at home in Tennessee. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description. If you have any questions about defenses, say, hey, all of these defenses are owned in my league. All these defenses have been picked up. What's another defense to stream? Just ask down below in the comments. I love talking to you guys in the comment section. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' Monday. And as always, guys, goodbye.